Oh look, you came back. Well, hi there. So welcome back to Mr. Steve's Kitchen. I am going to introduce myself since this is only the second facing video that I've done. Everything that I've done prior to this has been over my shoulder. So my name is Steve Smith. I am a middle school 8th grade English teacher, and I am in love with cooking, and I have been my entire life, and so I decided to share that. After a lot of people saw my posts of pictures, they just asked me if I would shoot some videos, and so I've decided to do that. So welcome to my kitchen. It's not a big kitchen, but it's suitable for me. Tonight what we're gonna do is I've got some vegetables that it's time for them to go. So I'm going to incorporate them into an old favorite of mine, which is I love chicken enchiladas. So I'm going to turn the chicken enchiladas into a chicken enchilada casserole with some onions and broccoli and jalapenos in them. And so we're going to put that all together tonight. Right now I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees. I have a casserole dish that is already oiled, and then I've got a skillet of oil with just enough oil in the bottom of it. I don't know if you can see that. Just enough oil in the bottom of it to cover the bottom of the pan. That is heating on my stove right now because we're going to put some tortillas in it. I'll explain why we're going to do that in a second. And then I have a little bit of the broth from the chicken that I cooked that is here. I cooked one chicken breast. I just boiled it, and so all you need for this recipe is just a cooked chicken breast. If you want to grill it, grill it. If you want to bake it, bake it. Just make sure it's cooked because we're going to shred it. So I've got a little bit of the stock left over from that. Instead of using all of it because it's way too much, I took the rest of it and put it in the freezer so I can use it at a later date. But yeah, so let's get started. This is going to be really tasty. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the sauce started. So I'm going to put in 2 ounces of cream cheese, and I'm putting that in first in the broth that's hot so it can start to melt because we don't want big lumps. So I'm just going to put it in there and let it start to melt a little bit, and then I will come back to that in a moment. So that's the start of the sauce. To the sauce, I'm going to add 1 can of cream of chicken condensed soup. You can make your own if you want to. Just some chicken shredded and some cream, and just mix those up. I just didn't feel like going to that through that problem. My words leave me. I didn't feel like going through all that process tonight. I've also got some sour cream here, some ground cumin. We're gonna put that in the sauce as well. And then the melting pot has this garlic and wine sauce, and those of you who know who I'm talking to right now know that this stuff is good because we got it together. Anyway, so these are the spices I'm putting in. The condensed soup and the chicken already have a lot of salt. I added salt to the water, so it tastes kind of like seawater at this point because it's got a lot of salt in it. But the cheese and the chicken and the sour cream and all of the things that don't have salt are really gonna suck that up. This big hunk of broccoli right here is gonna suck that salt right up. So when I taste it before we put it in the oven, might add a little bit more salt, but at this point, I'm not looking at adding any salt. What I'm gonna do with the broccoli is I'm gonna go ahead and get that started. So I'm just gonna cut off this entire chunk of florets there. I only want the florets in. This big stalk you can grate to put into, like you can make a broccoli coleslaw out of it. I've shredded it before and used it for that. I'm gonna toss it in the freezer and make some veggie stock out of it later. So I'm just gonna put it behind me and I will box that all and put it in the freezer later. So I just wanna get my florets down to manageable sizes. So I'm just gonna cut them in half. Make sure you have a sharp knife at your disposal. Just gonna cut all these in half, and then we're gonna move them. This is a big one, so I'm gonna cut him twice. And then this big boy, let's just take a few of those. Those are fine on their own. Those two are fine, that one's fine now. if I chop it up here, they all let go. And one last little guy right there. All right, so we have all of our broccoli there. I'm gonna chop up that little bit of stock and we'll just keep him with us. So now I've got a little bit of an onion left. This is a red onion. So this is about 1/4 of an onion. I'm just gonna dice it up. And pretty big dices, because in casseroles, I like to taste and see the onions. I don't like them to be hidden. So I'm just gonna do a pretty large dice. Just get it ready real quick. All right, so you can see the dices are, I'm gonna get a big one that you can see. Probably about 1/4 of an inch. Probably can't see that, it's too small. I tried. So just dicing up the onions, dice them the size that you want. One of the things that I say more than anything else when I'm showing people how to cook is it's all to your taste. You are the master of your kitchen. If you don't want a lot of onions, don't use a lot of onions. If you want them minced, mince them. If you don't want them at all, don't put them in. But yeah, so these are when I cook, I do for my taste. So just think about that, especially if you're throwing stuff together like this. It's not a recipe that I'm following, I'm just creating it as I go. And so just put in what you think you like. So this is a massive jalapeno, so I'm gonna cut him up as well. And he's gonna be in pretty large dices. I'm not gonna mince him like I were making salsa or anything. Which, by the way, I got a lot of feedback from the salsa, so thank you for that. I changed my my YouTube name to Mr. Steve Loves to Cook. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's brand new, and I can't even believe that I'm telling people to subscribe, because I've always been like anti-social media, but hey, it's fun. So yeah, go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I add videos pretty much every day, and they're all kind of fun. Okay, so I'm going to take all the vegetables and I'm going to put them in this bowl that I have below my counter. And we're going to let the vegetables cook in the oven. When we put it in, we're putting fresh vegetables in the oven. I'm not going to cook them prior, because I don't want to take any of the life out of them, and I could easily, blanch them before, but I'd rather just toss them in like this. So this is our vegetable mixture. It's just onions, broccoli, and jalapenos. So I'm going to set this right here. I'm going to give the cream cheese a stir. It's starting to get really soft. So we're just going to keep that going. I'm going to break it up just a little bit, kind of help it out. And then as it comes together and starts to blend with the stock that's in there, I'm going to add the soup. And this is just going to turn into like a creamy goodness that we're going to spread over as a sauce for our casserole. So I'm going to let that go for a little bit longer. And next step is I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to, I'm going to keep this because we're going to put the chicken in. So I'm going to shred the chicken. When you're shredding chicken, just use a fork and just start to pull. So just start to pull like this, pull a little bit off, throw it in there. When you cook your chicken and you, like if you boil it, just let it, this is cold chicken. It's like, it's been sitting on my counter for a little bit, long enough to lose its heat, so it makes it a little bit easier to handle. I have tried to shred chicken straight out of the pot before after boiling it, and that is not a fun experience because it is hot and your little fingers will get burned. So just make sure you let it cool a little bit. It doesn't have to be super cold, just cold enough to work with. And as we shred it, you'll see that like when I was thinking about this, I was like, I only have one chicken breast that's thawed out. So I wonder if that's enough. But then I remembered when you shred chicken, it kind of like doubles in size. So one breast will go a long way when you shred it. So just keep that in mind. when you're thinking about sizes of portions, if you're cooking for a family, you know, do a couple of chicken breasts. But it's just 1 or 2 people, 1 chicken breast is plenty. Now, something I'm going to show you, I don't know if you can see it, this chicken breast is not quite, I'm going to come over there a little bit. So it's not quite done in the center. There's a little bit of pink right in here. That's okay for this. If I were serving this straight like this, I would say, nope, not serving raw chicken. But it's a little bit undercooked, and that's okay because it's going to go in the casserole and it'll finish cooking in the oven. The thing to remember is foodborne illness. So if you don't get your meats up to the temperatures they're supposed to be, then that can be a problem. Also, if you're cooking for a casserole and you overcook the chicken, you're gonna have like really dry chicken inside the casserole. And you'd think that all of the sauces that we add to it would bring it back to life, but that is not always the case. So just, you know, cook it when if you're boiling it, just boil it until it appears done, and then, you know, look at it when you're shredding it. And if it's not, it's okay because it's going into the oven. If it's not gonna go in the oven afterwards, then that's an issue. So just make sure that you address that and make sure your chicken's fully cooked. This needs to come off. So what I don't want is when you're shredding chicken, you get these little bits of fat. Those go in the trash bowl. We don't put those in our casseroles. So I'm gonna do this tough part right here with my fingers. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to get a hold of it. And there we go. I remember my mom, when I was growing up, my mom would always make chicken and dumplings and things like that that had shredded chicken in them. And I was her go-to. She'd always be like, Steve, come shred the chicken. Of course, when I shredded it for her and I wasn't putting it in a meal, I was eating half of it. And if I didn't know already that this wasn't fully cooked, I probably would have eaten a few pieces as we did this, but that's okay. I'll get plenty later. All right, so we've got all of our chicken shredded. Let me get all the bits off the counter. Ooh, we got some over here. It ran away. All right. So see how that chicken breast kind of doubled in size. So that's gonna go in as our protein in our casserole. Let me set this back here. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to add the rest of the stuff, the ingredients to our sauce, but I'm gonna rinse my hands real quick first. Again, anytime you are working with meat, raw meat, cooked meat, eggs, jalapenos, anything that could burn your eyes or make you sick afterwards, make sure you wash your hands following it. And then that will help you not to send anybody to the hospital, because that's never a good place to go after a dinner party. All right, so this is our cream of chicken. And I'm gonna give this a little stir. Starting to come together. I'm actually going to change utensils. I'm going to go from a spatula to a little whisk, and that way I can get this all broken up a little bit faster. So just kind of get that cream cheese alive in there. As soon as it looks like that water, the broth turns to like milk, then you know that your cream cheese is good, and we can add other ingredients. So I'm going to add our cream of chicken soup, and I'm just gonna stir that in there. And this, the reason why I'm heating this before I'm adding it to the casserole is because it's easier to work with when it's warm, because if you could see this coming out, it's like, see how long it took that to drip out off the spatula? It's easier to work with, let's just go with that. It's easier to work with when it's warm. So just get all of that goodness out of there. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you do not have spatulas, rubber spatulas in your kitchen, you are missing out because you can get everything out of the can with a rubber spatula. Now, I'm also thinking about that. I'm also going to do, someone made a comment the other day. Actually, it was the person that bought the stand for me so I could do the videos. Shout out to Ashley Priest. She made the comment that I should do some like starter stuff, so like starter classes. So I think what I'm going to do is in the next couple of days, I'm going to put together a video that kind of shows what utensils you need to have in your kitchen, because the number of times that I've gone to people's houses to either cook for them or to help them cook, and they say things like, oh, I don't have one of those. And I just don't understand it. Like, you don't have tongs? You don't have spatulas? It blows my mind. Because these are essentials, people. Essentials. All right, so I'm gonna let that come up to a boil. I'm gonna turn up the heat just a smidge on that. And while that's heating, I'm going to take our tortillas. I have 6 corn tortillas here. The reason why I'm going to fry them, I'm just gonna fry them for just a second. I'm gonna fry them to put into the casserole is because if I put these in the casserole like this, these are corn, and it's just basically pressed corn flour with a little bit of lard or whatever binder they used. And if you put this in the casserole and then pour all the sauce over it, this just becomes corn mush. However, if you fry them for a second, they're going to, they can crisp up, which is a nice little crunch if you want to take it that far. I don't know that I'll take it that far. But it kind of seals it, so instead of it becoming corn mush in the middle of your casserole, it holds its ground, and you have that texture of the tortilla in the middle of it. And so, speaking of the tongs, I just realized that I need to rinse the tongs that I was using earlier, so that I can have them. I can't use my metal tongs because the pan that I'm using is non-stick, and so I don't want to use metal tongs on it because these are my go-to. These bad boys right here, those are my go-to. However, metal, I have to use plastic ones for the other. So when I'm using my cast iron, that's what I use. But when I'm in the middle of a non-stick pan, plastic it is. So, got these. This is calling for me to stir it because it's yelling at me because it's starting to boil. So I'm gonna give that a stir. At this point, there are still little chunks of white in the mixture. That's okay. The hotter it gets, the more that cream cheese is going to melt. So that's why I'm actually bringing it to boils to help that melt. So we'll let that continue to go for a little bit. Now, as I heat these tortillas, I'm going to turn my handle inside, and then I'm going to, using my tongs, you can absolutely put this in like this, using your fingers, but be prepared for it to hurt because that is going to eventually splash on you, and that is hot oil. So, tongs, lay it in, and, well, it's not as hot as I had hoped it would be, so we're going to turn it up a little bit. Yeah, it needs to turn up a lot, actually. That splashed on me. Alright, this guy is coming out. We're gonna let that heat up for just a second because it wasn't quite ready. I thought I had that heat higher than I did. So, that shouldn't take any time at all to come up. And that tortilla should be okay. So, see, when you're cooking, sometimes it's inevitable. Things are going to happen that you're not ready for, like the pan not being hot enough. You just have to be patient and get through it. So many people get frustrated because they feel like they can't cook. And reality is, you just have to be patient. You have to go, okay, this is what I want. This is the product that I want, and how am I going to get there? And you get yourself there. Don't get frustrated. It's so easy to get frustrated when you're cooking. I've had things before that burned. After I get finished cooking something, and you know, one of my favorite dishes to make is mac and cheese, and I have had an entire I've had an entire pan of mac and cheese that has gone, has scorched. The bottom of it scorched, and so you can't really recover from that because the entire pan takes on that scorched flavor. So trust me, I understand. You just have to be patient with yourself. Okay, so all of the little white bits are gone from our sauce here. So I'm going to add in, at this point, I'm going to toss in some seasoning. I am not a measurer, so most of the time I just, as I take off the lid to seasoning, I take off the little shaker too. And so for the ground cumin, I would say start with, this is a very powerful spice. It can take over your dish really easily. So I would say start with about half a teaspoon, if that. And so I'm just gonna give it about half a teaspoon. I'm just eyeballing it. And if you wanna measure it out, go for it. I mean, please, you know, get comfortable with your measurements. I season to taste most of the time. And so that little bit I'm putting in here, and I'm gonna taste it here in a second and figure out if I need more or not. And so that does need a little bit more, just a little bit though, because if it takes any more, it'll overpower the dish. So there we go. And that just, cumin gives it like an earthy flavor, and just kind of, I don't know, the spice from it just gives a certain earthy just feel to the whole dish. It kind of warms it up a little bit. Yeah. All right. So that is good. Now I'm going to add in my garlic and wine seasoning. I'm going for the side that has the spoon scoop. And this one is going to be about a tablespoon. I want to really taste the garlic and wine in this, so I'm putting about a tablespoon in there. Actually, about a tablespoon and a half. There we go. Now give that a little whisk. And again, if you have never had that seasoning, those of you who have had it know who I'm talking to. It is absolutely delicious. It's garlicky and it has this wine undertone to it. Yes, that's it right there. Perfect. All right. It doesn't need any salt. It doesn't need any pepper. It's got exactly what it needs right now. So I'm going to turn this burner off. And I'm going to stir in my sour cream. And so for the sour cream, this is I think it's an 8-ounce container. Yeah, an 8-ounce container. You want about 4 ounces of sour cream. And so that's going in the trash bowl. I'm gonna grab a clean spoon. Now, when you open sour cream, don't be afraid to give it a little stir. I've seen so many people that just open the sour cream and they just take off the top, and it's like that runny, like, ew at the top, and that's where they start from. And I'm like, no, it begs to be mixed. Please mix it up. All right, so now we've got our sour cream all smooth. I'm gonna put about 4 ounces in this mixture. And this is gonna be our sauce. And a little bit more, there we go. Get the rest of that in there. All right. And now I'm gonna taste it all together. That's almost offensive, it's so good. Sour cream back in the fridge. I mean, it's good. Just, you want to be here for dinner. That's all I gotta say. This sauce is going to be glorious. So, that's all good. I'm gonna set it back on the stove. Now, next step is to finish our tortillas. So again, I'm going with this one that we put in earlier. Yeah, see there? Now you hear that fry. That's what didn't happen earlier. So we want to seal that up. I have a plate here lined with paper towels, and I'm just going to toss that in there. It's that quick. That quick. Next one. Now I've got 6 here, so we're going to do 6 tortillas. And as soon as those 6 tortillas are done, we'll start to put our casserole together and throw it in the oven. Okay. Right here. With the plate, with the paper towel, it's a good idea to have it close to your skillet with the oil in it, but do not get too close because you don't want your paper towels to ignite. I was watching a cooking show the other day on the Food Network, and one of the people, it was that show about the worst cooks in America, and one of them lit their towel on fire while they were standing next to the stove. And she was like, how do you light a towel on fire? And I was like, well, you get too close. That's what we don't do. So use common sense when you're working with open flames, please, people. All right, that one's done. And then we got 2 more to go. So as we finish these up, we'll start to put everything together, and then we'll just throw it in the oven and let it do its thing. Okay. And then like that. This is our last one. Now, if you want chips at all, there's oil in this pan. So cut up some of your extra tortillas and throw it in there and salt them as soon as they come out. Let them get crispy. Cut them up first, obviously, the triangles. But you can make your own chips doing this exact method. My mom used to do this for tacos. So when we'd have tacos, my mom would always cook them up like that. And then we would fill them with meat, and that would be our deal. So yeah, it was really good. All right, I'm gonna clean off my workspace. Just put everything behind me. We don't need our knife anymore. We don't need that except for the spatula, so I'm gonna grab that in a second. But I'm going to clean all of these little bits off and drop them in my trash bowl here. There we go. All right, now we have a nice clean working space. So the casserole dish is already oiled and ready to go. I'm gonna move that around in there just a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to use a paper towel and just go up on the sides a little bit. I don't want it to stick. So it's all nice and oiled. There we go. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna toss just a little bit of sauce in the bottom. Spoon. There we go. So we're gonna do just a little bit of sauce in the bottom. And that just sets it up so that nothing is sticking. Put that right there. And then we're gonna toss in our tortillas. So we're gonna put down one tortilla. As I layer them in there, we're gonna do 2 layers. I'm gonna do 1 layer on the bottom with a little bit of sauce and kind of push them toward the edge a little bit to make a little bit of a crust around it. See, I've got like 3 of them in there. So you just wanna get those in there a little bit and then add our chicken and veggies, okay? So, veggies first. Broccoli, onions. The little ones went to the bottom, so make sure you grab some of those as well. So that's the peppers and the broccoli. I'm sorry, peppers and the jalapenos. Peppers are jalapenos. Peppers and onions is what I meant to say. And then we're gonna throw in some chicken. Just like that. And again, we're doing 2 layers. So this first one, make it hearty, but don't use all the ingredients. And then some cheese. So I've got, once or twice, well, usually once a week, sometimes twice. I buy block cheese. I hate the cheese that comes pre-shredded because they put a chemical on the outside of it to keep it from sticking together, and I just don't like it. It doesn't melt the way that I like it to melt. So I shred my own. So I buy blocks of cheese, and then just once a week I just shred a bag of cheese. So we've got our layers. We've got our tortillas, vegetables, actually sauce on the bottom, tortillas, vegetables, the chicken, and then the cheese. And now we're gonna put some more sauce on top. So we're gonna cover this entire thing in sauce. So just like that, just put that sauce all around. And then as this cooks in the oven, it's going to seep down through that, and all those flavors are just going to come alive. So the last tortillas go here, and one more time we're going to put the rest of our vegetables in. So just pour those on top, and make sure that they're distributed. You know, don't just pour it and leave. Make it look pretty. Balance it out. You don't want all the broccoli in one spot or all the onions in one spot. Or all the jalapenos in one spot, because you're gonna be on fire. All right, so these are done back here. And then our chicken goes on. This is the last of the chicken. It's running away from me. So sprinkle that right on there, dump the rest. Again, distribute everything. We're gonna put some cheese down, and then we're gonna cover with the sauce, and then put some more cheese, because we like cheese. All right, now the rest of the sauce goes on top. Let's get everything out of the way. Just put all that amazing flavor all over the top of it. And the cool thing is that as this has a lid on it, as it goes in, we're gonna cover it. And so the vegetables are gonna release a little bit of water, and that is gonna help to kind of steam everything as well. So the juices from the vegetables, the juices from the sauce that we've created, that's all gonna create this amazing medley of flavors. Let me get everything out, because I don't want to waste a bit of this sauce, because it is tasty. All right, clean off that spoon. See how well it cleans while it keeps dripping? It cleans the spoon really well. All right, and then we're gonna take the rest out of the pan and get all of that off the bottom. And this was an empty pan. Look how much I'm getting out of it, because I used a spatula. See all that? There. And now the pan's almost clean. There's some on the bottom too. Wow. All right, so that is the end there. Yeah, I did that. And I'm not even upset about it. I'm not ashamed, it's good. All right, the last of the cheese. Just gonna take this and sprinkle it on top. Just like that. Whatever's left, just up in the middle there. There we go. And so I hate leaving the little bits of cheese. I'm sorry. I'm severely OCD when it comes to things like this. Well, anybody who knows me knows that I'm severely OCD about most things. Anyway, all right, so that is our casserole. I'm gonna rinse my hands quick. The oven is heated to 400 degrees. We are going to toss this in the oven for covered. We're gonna toss this in for about 20 minutes, because everything is cooked. Everything in this is cooked except for the vegetables. So 20 minutes with the steam will allow those to cook, and then it's just gonna turn into this amazing dish. So I'm just gonna toss it in. The veggies are in here, so I'm not gonna make a side tonight. I'm just gonna have this for dinner. So this goes in the oven for 20 minutes, and then we'll have dinner. So that's all good. And as usual, I'll show you the finished product with pictures. So I hope that everything that we did tonight kind of helped you, and I hope that it gave you some ideas. Use my recipe if you want to. I'll post it